This happened over a decade ago when I was 12 years old. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, and in my neighborhood the houses are fairly spread apart, separated by woods. It was a school day, so my grandma picked me up from school and brought me home. This was the first year that I got dropped off at my house alone. Before this, I would just go to my grandma's house after school. I would get dropped off at around 3 p.m., and my parents would be home around 4:30. Not that big of a deal. Today, for some reason, my dad wasn't going to be home until later, around 7, and my mom, a teacher, wouldn't be home until around 8 p.m. because she had parent-teacher conferences at the school. This happened in early fall, so it wouldn't even be dark until like 8:30 p.m. I did what I usually did when I got home. I ran upstairs, got on my Xbox 360, and played Minecraft with my friends. Today it was just me and my friend Seth. I was playing for about 2 hours when I heard a car door shut in my driveway. No one should have been here until like 7 p.m. My house is set up to where my upstairs has windows that look over my driveway. So with my mic on and controller in hand, I went to the window to see who it was. Maybe my dad got home earlier than expected. I looked outside. It was a red truck. No one I know drives a red truck. The person pulled into the middle of my driveway sideways, like he owned the place. When I looked out the window, I saw a man with a hat, wearing a big camo hoodie and jeans. It was September, so no one should have been wearing a big hoodie and jeans in Oklahoma. By the time I looked, he was already almost out of view, going up my walkway to my front door. I thought maybe it was one of my dad's friends, or someone my dad hired to do something. But he would usually tell me if someone was going to be coming over. Soon after, I hear a knock at the door, then another. I go to my other window that has a better view of the walkway up to my front door. I see the guy walking back down the walkway. I switch and go back to looking through the windows overlooking my driveway. I'm relaying all of this to Seth, still with my mic on. I tell Seth that he's walking back to his truck now. Instead, he walks past his truck and tries to open my garage side door. At this point, my heart sinks. I tell Seth that this guy just tried to get into my house. Mind you, it is literally broad day at like 5 p.m. Luckily, it was locked because sometimes we forget to lock it. After he tried the door, he starts walking to my back patio. I drop my headset and I quietly run downstairs to see what he is doing. I get downstairs and stand behind the wall, so I'm not visible from the back door / living room windows. I just listen. I hear him try to open the door. Then I hear a thud. It sounded like he dropped a brick on the ground or something. At this point, I'm more scared than I've ever been. I wanted to call my parents or grandma, but I didn't have a cell phone yet. The only phone in the house was in my kitchen. I would have to cross my living room to get there, and he would be able to see me if I went into there. A few seconds after the thud, I peeked around the corner, and he was gone. I run back upstairs and put my headset back on, telling Seth that he just tried to open the back door as well. As I'm telling him this, I hear a car door shut. This time when I look out the window, he finally got in his truck. I looked at the truck closer, and I noticed the only thing he has in his truck bed was a crowbar and shovel. He sat in his truck for what felt like a few minutes. During this time, Seth told me to get my iPod and take a picture of his license plate. He was parked to where I couldn't see it. Then he drove backwards out of my driveway and down the road. A few minutes after he was confirmed gone, I went downstairs to see what the thud could have been. I get to the back door and see that the doormat was moved. Both big plant pots had been moved as well. He was looking for a key. We have a hidden key back there too. The key to the back door was under one of the smaller plant pots on a ledge near the door, not the bigger ones that he had checked under. I went to the front porch, and all the pots looked like they had been moved too. I don't know what I would have done if he was able to find the key, or if he just broke in. After he left, I called my dad and told him what happened. When my dad got home, he had a cop come over, and I told him what happened and gave him a description. The guy never came back. When I was 18, I lived in a suburb of southeast Melbourne, Australia, Noble Park. Our house was the odd one out. On a street of 70s/80s brick homes, ours was an Alpine-style weatherboard home with a steep roof built in the early 20th century. It was old, cold, and noisy, and you could see the ground through the gaps in the floorboards. We had a big dog who stayed outside until everyone was home, and then slept outside in a big pen/doghouse at night, mostly in the summer. We also have an indoor cat. The week it happened, I was home alone. Dad was overseas. Mom and Sis were visiting family. One night when walking home from work, I rounded the corner and noticed a figure standing on our carport roof, looking through a window into one of 3 upstairs bedrooms. The sun was setting, so all I could see was a dark silhouette. I yelled at it from the top of the driveway, and it was gone. I remember thinking it odd that my dog didn't bark or notice anything. I went inside, checked the house, the dog, the windows and doors, etc., and everything seemed in place. I assumed I had just seen a shadow from a nearby tree at sunset. The following night I walked home from work, and everything seemed normal. I checked all windows and doors, let the dog inside for the evening, and eventually put him and myself to bed. My bedroom was upstairs, down the hall from the room next to the carport roof. Before bed I had a routine of shutting all doors in the house, as they were all squeaky, and the drafts would often blow them closed if left open. This night, I closed all doors, checked locks, turned off all the lights, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night I was awoken by something, not sure what, but when I came to focus my eyes and looked around, I saw the hallway light coming in under my door. I thought I turned it off, but perhaps I forgot. Right then my doorknob started rattling, like someone was struggling to open the door. I immediately lay back down on my side, facing the wall opposite my bed, and my heart starts beating hard. I hear the door open and close my eyes. I figured if someone is breaking in, I'll pretend I'm asleep, and maybe they'll take what they want and leave. I slowly open one eye, the one against the pillow so it's less obvious. I see the light from the hallway on my wall. My bedroom door is fully open. My heart is beating harder. I lay still. I see the digital clock on my CD player, and a little after 2:00 a.m. Then, I hear the door creak again, and watch as the light on the wall slowly starts to disappear. The bedroom door is closing. At this point I'm positive we're being robbed, but I continue to pretend I'm asleep. Keeping one eye open, everything is heightened. The loudest noise is my heartbeat, but I try to listen through it and can't hear anything. No breathing, no footsteps, nothing. At this point I begin to feel pressure around both my feet. The blanket is getting tighter around them, and I realize that something is now sitting on the end of my bed. I look at the clock again, and it's now a little before 3:00 a.m. I'm frozen, scared, and have no idea what's happening. At some point I have the idea to slowly readjust my position in bed and move my feet a little to see if something moves or happens. So, I do this, but as I slowly readjust my feet, I feel one of them hit something solid. Something is definitely sitting on the end of my bed. I don't know what to do at this point, so I stay still and listen, while looking through one eye at the clock and the bedroom wall. The next thing I remember is hearing the first birds starting to chirp before sunrise. I look at the clock, and it's now a little before 6:00 a.m., and I notice the room is a little brighter. The sun is coming. Shortly after this, I feel the pressure lift from the end of the bed. I hear the bedroom door open. I see the light from the hallway on the wall again, and then the door shuts and the sun starts to rise. I got up shortly after this and checked the whole house. All doors and windows were locked. The dog had slept through the night, and nothing from the house was missing. My cat was stuck in the bathroom overnight. He must have followed my in when I brushed my teeth without my noticing. I'm not sure what happened, but I won't forget that night in Noble Park. When my mother was pregnant with me, she and my father bought a house in very rural East Germany. My father was disabled, so he couldn't work anymore, and my mother worked in the psychiatric hospital an hour away. So my father was always left alone in the house, and he hated it. He told my mother he'd hear voices and footsteps, things would move, the TV would change channels, and so on. My mother always thought it was because of his medications, heart defect, diabetes, and very strong pain medications. Since her go-to was always, "No, you're just stressed and tired," since that was the same thing she told herself and continues to say to herself to this day. When I was born, my father was terrified to let me sleep on the attic, where my room was planned to be. He made me stay in his room until his excuses wouldn't work anymore. He always said that I'd have night terrors, and so on, since my mother always did night shifts, and therefore couldn't prove him wrong. He also put me in kindergarten at 9 months old, cause the house creeped him out too much. The first memories I have of this house are no different. I heard the voices of men's coughing, and heavy footsteps. But I didn't have such a problem with it as my father did. I didn't think they were scary for some reason. At some point, my mother didn't have as many night shifts as she did back then, so I was moved to the room on the attic. It was way louder up there. I had the same experiences as my father. My TV would switch channels, my VHS player would act up, which wasn't that weird as I was used to that and thought they just did that, and the DVD player did the same. I had drapes in front of my bed that would move every night right next to the armchair that my mother put there. One plushie kept falling off of the shelf. And I had weird dreams, always of grown-arse men. A Russian soldier, two men that I could never put into a category. The men in my dreams would just be normal to me, not threatening but just there. I was so young that I didn't know that this was a whole village for the Russian military in the GDR. And once the GDR was gone, the Russian soldiers left, and Germans would buy those houses. I called them by the names they told me, which were Sasha, Heinrich, and Max. Sasha and Max would always tell me never to go into the woods without my neighbors. I didn't question it, why would I? I was 4, and my neighbors always watched me when my father was in the hospital, and my mother was at work when the kindergarten was closed. The 3 would also always say never to talk to certain neighbors, which were basically all except those who watched me regularly. Once again, why would I question that? For years old, nice neighbors were fine, and those 3 were always nice. At one point, my mother got behind it that I experienced the same thing my father did, so she questioned my father and me separately. I described them, gave names, and told her how they talked and what they said. Hughes brushed it off until we were both going to our beach, but I said, I know a shortcut. We had a hidden beach that you can't even see on Google Maps to this day, since it belongs to the military base next to our house. She didn't know, my dad didn't know, neighbors didn't know, no one really did. But I somehow led her to it through the forest, knew where I could and couldn't step. What could possibly be in a forest, in an area that was full of war, next to a military base of the Russians? Exactly. Landmines. Never hit any, never saw any explode until I was 12. But we did find a lot of those that stepped on said mines. My mom asked me where I knew, and I told her. Sasha told me. Now at that point, she did get suspicious and did some research. Sasha was the first officer who lived there and had a heart attack. Max and Heinrich were normal people who moved there but died. Heinrich was very old, by the way. And for Max, my mother had to do more digging cause she got the house from the bank. The guy that lived here before us hung himself. Max. I saw and heard them for years. Then it got less until it stopped when I moved into the room of my father when he died. But I always felt watched in that room. From the corner his bed was. Fast forward a few more years, I have a friend over, and we both decided to stay in the attic to watch Harry Potter, 'cause my old 80s TV had the DVD player. TV turns off. Must be the bad wiring. Light turns on. Maybe the switch wasn't fully flicked. TV turns on again, but now my VHS is running, and Nupagati is playing. That thing was spooky when I was a toddler, so nothing new. So I tried to fix it, when my friend suddenly got quiet and called my name while staring at the direction of the door. There's a mirror on the chimney that I covered. I spray paint when I was a kid 'cause mirrors are creepy. What? I swear there is someone standing. You see things? No, I don't. That's a Russian. Very funny German. I literally thought she was kidding 'cause she always called me Russian as a nickname. I was the only Russian kid in our elementary school, so my head flicked to that. Look, he's staring right at us. Now I got creeped out, turned around and see nothing. You see someone? Yeah. How do you know he's Russian? 'Cause of the uniform. You see him. Uniform? How the hell would she see my imaginary friends? At least I thought they were imaginary friends. Sasha, go away. As a joke. A bloody joke. And then she turned to me and straight up took her things and ran back down the stairs. She then told me that the Russian just nodded and left. She refused to go anywhere near my attic ever again and spent that night in a tent in the backyard. How the hell could she see my imaginary friend from when I was a toddler? At some point, my mother asked her about this, and after a long talk, she told her what she saw. So once my friend was back at her home the next day, my mother parked her car after we let her put and told me that those were not imaginary friends. That she thought they were, but got convinced otherwise when she once saw my father in the hallway just staring at her. Years after he died. She told me she yelled at him to go away, and he just left and went back into his room, which was where he died and then became my room. I still don't know what the hell is up with that house, but let's just say that once I inherit it, it goes straight back to the bank. 'Cause if it really was ghosts, what do those guys in the attic really want? Why are they there? Why did they stare at my friend? Why could she see Sasha and I couldn't? But if he was bad, why did he just nod and leave her alone? Every time I go up to the attic, I feel watched. Every time I'm in my room, I feel watched. I still hear those footsteps and voices from the attic. Maybe those footsteps in my father's room were his stumping to get the blood flowing. But I do not want to know. I do not want to see him. I'd probably have the same reaction my mother had when she saw him. But I won't be keeping this house. Something has always gone wrong with this house anyway. It's expensive in the upkeep, and if ghosts are real, no thank you.